At UCI, we believe in the infinitely curious. We believe in the courageous of thought, the ones willing to fail again and again until one day they don't. When you have the courage to see things differently, to see opportunity where others see impossibility, amazing things will happen. At UCI, we stop at nothing to change the world, to save lives and deliver the extraordinary.
Good afternoon and welcome to the OC Forum's most aspirational program of its 30th year, The Future of Orange County. My name is Paul Stover and I've had the privilege and the most humbling experience of serving as president of OC Forum. Clearly, 2020 has been a challenging and unprecedented year for all of us. Our plan during the OC Forum's 30th year was to invite leaders and visionaries to share their insights into the future. Then, COVID hit. Without hesitation, the OC Forum offered our first virtual program on OC's response to the coronavirus that reached thousands of viewers who were hungry for information. From then on, the OC Forum board worked tirelessly in serving up virtual programs focusing on the future of the economy, mental health, race relations, transportation, education, esports, affirmative action, and most recently, philanthropy. Perhaps more than ever, 2020 reiterated the importance of OC Forum's mission to host civil conversations and propose solutions around complex issues that affect us all. Today, we will introduce you to several visionaries who are shaping the future for people in the county and around the world. As a nonprofit that has historically relied on contributions from in-person events to help fund its mission, OC Forum has seen people and institutions in this county step up and offer their support through sponsorship. I would also argue that our amazing and diverse board of directors at OC Forum are among the most engaged on the planet. Now, we would simply not be able to carry forth the mission of OC Forum without your contributions. Thank you to all of our viewers, supporters, and sponsors. While 2020 certainly did not come with a book of instructions, it also did not say we could still not celebrate each other. We hope you enjoy today's program as we celebrate the 30th anniversary of your OC Forum. Now, it is my great privilege to welcome your moderator for today's program, Orange County Business Council President and CEO, Lucy Dunn. Take it away, Lucy.
Welcome. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us for the OC Forum's 30th anniversary special on the future of Orange County, presented by UCI and UCI Health. I'm Lucy Dunn, CEO and President of the Orange County Business Council, and delighted to be the moderator for today's conversation. This is an awesome event because we're going to take a little bit of a pause from the focus on immediately on COVID and the day-to-day activities and what we're all doing in Orange County to look at the future. Move a little bit from the present, not forgetting the lessons we're learning from the past, and focus on that future. And our conversation today is going to look at basically three key areas: innovation, wellness, and community. I'm truly excited to speak with our guests today on these topics. And following our live discussion, we're going to hear from leaders across Orange County as they share their thoughts on these three areas. So it's my pleasure now to introduce our esteemed panel. Emile Haddad, Chairman and CEO 5 Point, a visionary indeed who challenges all of us to think holistically about housing. The Honorable Gaddi Vasquez, former U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations agencies, but you may also know him from being on the ground in public safety, as our public leader on the Board of Supervisors, and a top executive for Edison International. And of course, Kimberly Cripe, CEO and president of CHOC, a leader on so many fronts, from mental health to diversity and equity, and of course, caring for our children in the pandemic that we're experiencing today. So thank you, gentlemen and lady, for joining me today. Shall we jump right in? Okay, here we go. Innovation. So when you think of innovation and you look at Orange County as a whole, where do you think innovation or change is needed? Emile, why don't we start with you?
Well, I think that what is needed in innovation is for the world to realize the role that Orange County is playing in innovation, which is a secret to most of the world. And I think if we're going to really be thinking about innovation, which is really the driving force behind the new economy, we need to make sure that the talent that is going to actually feed that is aware of what Orange County can provide them. Because right now, I think a lot of people who are that lifeblood of innovation, the young talent, still thinks of Orange County as if it's a bedroom community, and I think we need to change that.
Yeah, very good. Kimberly, your thoughts? Where do you think innovation or change is needed in Orange County?
It's such a big topic. I agree with Emile. I think part of what the opportunity we have is to better position ourselves both within the state but on a national level, because I don't think people realize the diversity of this community, including the work that's going on in the innovation space and entrepreneurship. So I think getting some of the opportunities I see would be better engaging the youth in our community early on. We've got kind of a massive exodus of entrepreneurs and that sort of thing having to leave the community and go up to the Silicon Valley or wherever they might be. I can't help in the healthcare space to think about everything that we've learned through this pandemic. And while it's been a challenge for sure, there's some amazing innovation that's coming out of the need for keeping our community safe. So I'm thinking about things like telehealth. I think we'll see accelerated 20-fold over what might have happened. Home monitoring, there's just a lot in that space. And we're fortunate in Orange County to have such a big biotech and pharmacy and medical community that's working quite well as we're innovating and taking better care of our community going forward.
Very good. Gaddi, your thoughts on where do you think innovation or change is needed?
Well, I've been fortunate to grow up in Orange County, and I have had the opportunity to witness various chapters or phases in our history of innovation. And we've had some remarkable leaders who have born here, raised here, and have become not just leaders in the country, but around the world in terms of research and development. I do believe that it is important to recognize that Orange County's economy is a very profile. That is, we have various industries, biotechnology, we have design centers, R&D, and it's a mix of opportunities for us to be able to maintain that cadence of being a leader. But to Emile's point, and I agree with him, having lived overseas and seen Orange County from Europe, it is true that Orange County is not recognized in the way that I think it could or should be in the years to come. And in fact, I remember very distinctly that people were enthralled, at least in some parts of Europe, with a show that was televised from Orange County called the OC. And that was the #1 teen show in Italy, where I happened to be serving. And it struck me that of all things to be known for, we're known for a show that was, I was told later, most of it wasn't even filmed in Orange County. Right. So I think making sure that we retain that identity of being innovators, of being thought leaders, of being influencers will be critically important. And I would also add that we are fortunate to have some of the great universities in America right here in Orange County, which can be sources of knowledge, sources of research that can help both the public and the private sector build the partnerships that create innovation.
That's great. Emile, talk a little bit about, I love your visionary view of housing and that global connectivity that you do with looking holistically at housing as a form of innovation. Can you share a little bit about that type of innovation in your specific field?
Sure. So, I mean, first of all, I think that the world has been witnessing for the last maybe couple of decades the disruption of everything that existed before, created as a result of the Industrial Revolution. And now we're going to be getting into more of a way of existence that is driven by the third economy in history, or the third revolution of economy in history. And I think that it is sort of naive to assume that the space itself and the way we all interact is not going to change with it. And one of the things that I learned is that the way to not repeat mistakes in the future is to learn them from them in the past. So what I mean by holistic is, if you think about everything that we have done for the last 100 years, everything has been in silos. We all were forced to live in one place, work in another place, shop in a third place, silos of time. We have slots of time. And that was all driven by a factory and by the automobile. And I think that as a result of that, we did not actually help quality of life. So what we're looking at right now is breaking all the silos and saying, how do we look at how does a person want to spend their time, 24 hours, and how do we look at it holistically? How do we make sure that we look at jobs and homes and recreation and healthcare, all of that as part of a program rather than every one of them as a standalone? I think that's what we are looking at, and obviously we can't do it alone. So we're inviting a lot of people who have the same beliefs to come and do it in collaboration.
Do you see any models for this around the world, or is this where Orange County is going to lead in the way we look and design new communities of the future?
Well, look, I think that in many ways we are building a community of the future looking to the village of the past.
Yes.
I think that I believe that if you look at the how people existed before the big industries came in, before the Industrial Revolution, before we took everybody and put them in a big factory, the human relationship at that time, where the baker was your neighbor, the baker was your cousin, and there was more of a fabric, social fabric that existed, is the way that I think we're going to start rebuilding relationships. I always refer to the fact that I grew up in a place like that, and it's an old city that withstood the test of time for thousands of years. And we existed, every income level, people who from all walks of life, everything was all a mixture, and there was a fabric. And I think what we lost in the last 100 years, Lucy, is the human interaction. As much as we criticize today social media and how that's making it more difficult to interact, I think we actually had it worse when we were all commuting and interaction wasn't there.
It's an interesting point. I remember even growing up thinking that two things that impacted our ability to be more of a community and a neighborhood was the invention of air conditioning and the loss of the front porch, that we could watch each other's children. Isn't that an interesting thing? And so you're basically reinventing that with the way you're thinking about housing and community as a whole, right?
It's interesting. I mean, if you come in, as you know, Lucy, we brought back the front porch to Orange County, to the Great Park, and our homes have a front porch. We narrowed the street, and we gave everybody a bike, so we can go back to the days where parents can sit, watch their kids play while they're socializing on their front porch.
Right. Fascinating. Great.
Lucy, if I could take a moment just to
please, Gaddi, jump in.
Yeah, what Emile was alluding to is I happen to be raised in the city of Orange, which has gone through a renaissance of sorts. That village concept that he's referring to is that the downtown Orange area, which is surrounded by hundreds of historic homes that date back many, many decades, are coming to life. And interestingly, they're being acquired by young couples with children because in the evenings you can come to downtown Orange and you can see these children playing in the plaza, taking advantage of the opportunities, being able to walk to a dining establishment, although it's challenging right now. But the point being is that it's illustrative of how a community, albeit aged back to 1888, is still very vibrant in that concept of what Emile is talking about, which has really attracted a lot of younger couples to this area. And there are other communities in Orange County that are enjoying that kind of renaissance.
That's fascinating, Gaddi. I want to get to Kim and to talk a little bit about her comment on jobs. But one of the things that you raised, particularly about the plaza in Orange, is a lot more outdoor dining now. COVID, is requiring us. And yet folks don't actually necessarily want that to go away. They still want to be able to walk to their restaurant from their home. And so you see that as an innovation that was born out of pandemic that may stick around with us for a while, right?
Absolutely right. And that's been the reaction. If you talk to people on the street when the restaurants were open, that's been what people have been talking about. Hey, who stumbled onto this idea? This is a great idea. And it's been catching on, and now people are talking about retaining it. But it's a very interesting concept given the circumstances.
And yet, clearly, this is where Emile grew up, in neighborhoods where this was commonplace. And so what's old is new again, and what's new is future for us. Kimberly, you touched upon this in your opening thoughts on innovative jobs. How are we doing in creating innovative jobs, and particularly in healthcare? And I'm fascinated by artificial intelligence, how that impacts every industry sector. So in your field, how are we doing here in Orange County? And how are we going to keep those young people here?
Well, I actually think we're doing extremely well, although there's always opportunity to do even better going forward. But I think the ambassador mentioned how fortunate we are to be home to so many outstanding universities. And I think the private-public sector coming together and thinking about what is the workforce of the future and what are millennials and different generations looking for. When I think about healthcare, there's so much innovation taking place within our own system here. And part of it, I think, is being accelerated by the pandemic. So I'll give you a couple of examples. Right now at CHOC, we have over 1,300 of our healthcare workers working remotely. And it's just amazing how they've been able to stand up major innovation with telehealth. So I think computer sciences merging with medicine and behavioral health. One of the key learnings today, I'm going to tie it back to the discussion we were having about communities and relationships, are the whole person. I mean, a lot of what we're talking about is holistic, whether it's the neighborhood you're living in, whether we're teaching people to get outdoors, to eat outdoors, to exercise more, all of those kinds of factors that contribute overall to our well-being, physical and mental, I think are going to be important. And I do think they're going to generate new opportunities within our workforce. So, for example, the way we're training nurses and doctors today is different than what we were doing 10 or 20 years ago. So there's a lot going on. You mentioned artificial intelligence, and there is so much there in terms of predictive analytics, whether it's personalized medicine, whether it's genomics, whether it's learning hotspots with the spread of COVID. I mean, it's just an endless opportunity. And one of the things I'm most impressed with our community is how we have responded through the pandemic and the different sectors of business that are coming together to really let our guard down. And what can we learn from one another? What do we need from one another? So I really want to thank all the business leaders and our academic partners for the amazing innovation that they're driving and the way they're adapting to how we're teaching our youth of tomorrow who will become our workforce. And I'm hoping we'll get a chance to talk about, and I know we will, the impact this pandemic and the isolation is having on all of us as human beings, but our youth in particular, and what the stay-at-home orders are going to do in terms of our education system and downstream, what it's going to do to our workforce.
Very good. I'm going to move to wellness in just a moment. I want to ask one more question of Gaddi and of Emile to jump in on, Orange County is not likely to be a quote unquote affordable place to live. To keep our young people here, we do need to create those high paying jobs, those innovative jobs. How do we drive innovation and entrepreneurship in Orange County? Where do you see the future there to keep our young people here? Gaddi, you want to jump in?
Well, I think one of the important aspects is to recognize that we are increasingly a much more diverse county than we were just 10 or 15 years ago.
Right.
And I say that as a backdrop to the fact that we have two universities in Orange County that are designated as Hispanic serving institutions, which is 25% or more of the student enrollment are Latino. And I heard a statistic earlier today that reminded me of the growth of the community nationally, and that is that a Latino or Latina turns 18 years of age every 30 seconds. And Orange County today has a Latino population of about 34%. And so I think it's going to be very, very important for all of us who believe that higher education attainment is important to creating the infrastructure to a strong economy, because studies show that those who possess college degrees do have higher earning potential than those that don't. Not to suggest that college is for everyone, but I think it is important for the institutions of higher learning to partner with the private sector, to partner with the public sector within Orange County to recognize that the way that we approach attainment of higher education in the future is going to be critically important, so that those who call Orange County home will be able to have the kind of affordability to be able to stay in Orange County. And hopefully leaders like Emile will be able to create the kind of communities that he's talking about, where you integrate not just a home, but you integrate a quality of life, a style of living, and an expectation of living that we all aspire to have. And at one time we're able to grow up with, but are now increasingly challenged by virtue of the cost of housing.
Very good. Thank you, Gaddi. Emile, any thoughts?
Sure. Well, look, I mean, I think cost of housing is definitely a component, but I don't think we're more expensive than San Francisco. Yet San Francisco is being able to attract the young talent over there, and they're willing to compromise, and some of them are living on a couch and sharing units. So as much as housing might be a factor, I think the bigger factor is in retention and attraction, is to convince the young generation that there's an ecosystem over here of collaboration that's available for them to come into this think tank and piggyback on the education systems that Gaddi was talking about, and the large organizations that could be their employers or their partners going forward. So I think it doesn't stop there. Now, for us, when you look at what we're doing, we're looking at, again, things holistically, because cost of living is not only housing, it's schooling. If you have a young couple that want to put their kids in good schools right now and they can't afford private school, it's a challenge for them, because a lot of the public systems in the state are not up to par. So what we're doing is we're partnering with the public education systems like the Irvine Unified School District and building state-of-the-art schools. So when somebody says, I might be paying a little bit more for a home, but I'm saving $50,000 a year and 2 kids going to a private school, at the end of the day, can you give them the full package? Can you tell them that they can live in a smaller home because they have a larger area to entertain and recreate in around them? I think that's really the holistic approach that we're talking about. And that's how we're going to get to attract people over here. But the most important thing is convince them that there is actually a think tank here, that there is a concept of a Silicon Valley. And I believe, to Kim's point, healthcare and artificial intelligence are the two components that could put us in a position to be a global leader in Orange County.
Emile, I would add to that. I think part of things that we can do to help focus is actually exposing our youth to what is here. I mean, many of the youth in our community don't have a family member who, was a doctor or a nurse or a lawyer or whatever. I think getting into the schools early on and helping to just create access for children to understand the richness of this community and the opportunities that exist. We're doing some interesting pilots where we're trying to work with elementary, middle school, and high schools, and we're obviously very focused on the universities here, but just getting children and their families some basic exposure to the careers that are here, whether it's science, medicine, technology, artificial intelligence. You can grab a child when they're curious and thinking about their future. The trajectory is phenomenal. So I think there's important work to be done there as well.
I agree.
Excellent. Kimberly, that whole mentorships, internships, starting younger and younger, right? Don't just wait for college, but yeah, really.
By the time people have got to college, and that's a really important sector, I'm not minimizing that, but people, for the most part, have some general idea of what their interests are and where they're headed. And a lot of times that's a result of simply what they've been exposed to and what their family or friends may have exposed them to. So I think there's a big opportunity to kind of open that window, if you will, and open the lens to entice people and get them interested in the diversity of business that's here.
Very good.
If I could just add that I think in that vein, one of the positive steps that we're seeing in Orange County time and time again is that leadership in Orange County is becoming much more diverse, whether it's in the private sector, it's ethnic diversity, gender diversity, but I do also believe that it is important to have role models and individuals, men and women of color, diverse communities, to represent to younger generations the possibilities. Because I remember growing up as a young kid in Orange, looking at Latino leaders as the images of the people I someday hope to be, even as a child, to Kimberly's point. And so I think that is a very, very powerful aspect, that each and every one of us who have been fortunate to enjoy a role of leadership or of influence or managing, whatever it might be, each of us can invest ourselves in a mentorship program or providing that kind of support that's so critically important in those early stages. So I fully agree that that is a worthy area of investment, and it's one that each and every one of us can do on our own or collectively to really influence the future of Orange County.
Fabulous. I'm going to move now to wellness, our second pod topic here. And Kimberly, you touched on this a little bit. I think you alluded to it. Over the years, there's been a growing focus on mental health. However, this year with the COVID-19 pandemic, the subsequent lack of socialization, and Lord knows the changes in all of our routines, there's an even greater emphasis on the importance of mental wellness. In your estimation, are there gaps in mental health services in Orange County that are yet to be met? Where's our future in wellness here?
All right, so you're going to have to give me a timeout, Lucy, because if you wind me up on this one, we'll be here for hours. But
oh yeah, by the way, you can say all of this in 20 seconds, right?
So yes, there's a tremendous gap, absolutely, and I'm beyond concerned about the impact of the pandemic and people's overall well-being. And I will tell you, in the pediatric space, so children and adolescents, even before the pandemic, I'll just give you a couple of facts. We've seen a 45% increase in teen suicides in a very short period of time. We're seeing doubling of calls into our outpatient programs and our inpatient programs. You may know that we opened up a pediatric mental health inpatient center a couple of years ago. Before the pandemic, we were running at capacity. We have a huge waiting list. So I think the impact of isolation, and when we think about what all of us wanted to do when we were children and teenagers, it wasn't stay at home with mom and dad, if we were lucky to have a mom and dad at home, and doing our schoolwork remotely. So I think that we're going to see quite a long tail in terms of the impact of the pandemic for all of us. But in the child space, I'm very concerned about kind of post-traumatic stress syndrome as a result of the isolation. I'm also concerned, and I'm a full supporter of doing what we need to do to maintain public safety. So I'm not advocating that we go back to business as usual by any stretch of the imagination, but I think it's important to note that we're 9 months into this and our school system has been disrupted, and hats off to the educators for figuring out a way to do what we can do to move our children along. But I think there's going to be an education gap as well. So there is an enormous gap, and I think collectively as a community, we're going to need to get very serious about it. There was a serious gap to begin with, and it's only going to get exacerbated as a result of what we're dealing with here. So thank you for asking the question. It's very important, and I think you think about, if we miss something in an adult, it's important, but you miss something in a child, you've got 6, 7, 8 decades of kind of a payback and a tail associated with not picking up a mental health disorder, behavioral health, cancer, whatever the case may be. So I'm quite concerned about it.
So don't leave us there, Kimberly. You have to leave us with some hope or action items to work on. I know Be Well has been a love of yours. You've been a leader on establishing mental health centers, certainly for adults, but also CHOC was a leader in the first mental health beds for children as well. So give us some action items of where we need to look and start focusing.
Okay, I'm happy to do that. And there is a lot of good news here. I think the healthcare community, and I'm going to use the broader community, is learning a lot about what are the best systems of care and how can we work together. I think we all recognize no one of us can ever step up to the plate and take care of the seriousness and the magnitude of this. So I think efforts like Be Well are really important when we're bringing different experts together and thinking about, almost from cradle to grave, what are the issues? What are the underlying issues that are contributing to a mental health crisis, and how do we catch them early on? We know things like it's estimated that more than 50% of people that are incarcerated suffer from serious mental health issues. So I think number one is just continuing the conversation. There's still quite a stigma around mental health, and nobody really wants to step up and say, I've got an issue or a child or whatever. So broad awareness and broad education, and all of us as a community can help with that. But I think it's going to come down to funding and making mental health more of a priority from an advocacy and perspective. And then I do think there is a lot better information sharing on what treatment modalities are most effective. There are estimates for every $1 or every $7 or every $1 you spend on mental health, you'll save $7 down the road on physical health. So I think just better reconciling our resource allocation and what's needed. I would advocate for more focus on the youth within this spectrum too, because if we catch children early on and can help them learn different coping skills or whatever their family dynamics might be, that is going to change that child and that whole family unit, and then therefore our community's experience for life. And so you look at the trajectory of that. So we've got a lot of information. I'd love to continue the conversation, but it's not completely hopeless. It's not a big black hole that we can't do something about. So thank you.
That's great. Thank you, Kimberly. Gentlemen, what other parts of wellness do you think are essential to ensure a healthier and happier Orange County? In particular, I notice, we tend to be an aging population. We're living longer. And yet, when you look at all of our healthcare industries and healthcare sector, that's a robust employment base for us, tending to our population as well. Emile, again, that whole aspect of building a city of hope within your vision for Irvine. Talk a little bit more about other parts of wellness. What do you see?
Well, Lucy, we actually like to talk here about well-being more than wellness, because I think wellness seems to be more geared towards physical, and now we're starting to talk about it as mental. Well-being, in my opinion, is much broader, and we're not in the healthcare world, but we're in the community, in the social fabric world. And well-being means wellness of the body, wellness of the mind, wellness of the soul, social wellness. And I think those are the things that, if they come together well, then you will have a well-being. And I think a lot of the issues that I think Kim rightfully so was talking about could be avoided if you have the full package working. Because I could be physically well, I could be mentally well, but if I'm socially isolated, I have an issue. If I don't have the right job and the right aspiration, I have an issue. And I think that's why, what we do over here is we try to build communities that we always talk about, that provide a well-being, that look at all the aspects. Now, let me address the issue of the impact of the COVID-19. But I'm speaking from experience. I mean, the COVID-19 has been horrible, and it's been a year almost, and it has had an impact. But you're speaking to a person who lived 11 years in civil war. Right. And I grew up, and I saw kids grow up with the bombs falling every day. I lost a year in school. There was a lot of things that could have impacted the psyche of all of us negatively. I think that if I reflect back and say, what was helpful to go through that period, I could find myself falling back to the same issue. It's the social fabric we have. We had a system, a support system. I was with my parents all the time. I was, people were with their grandparents all the time. People were with their friends all the time dealing with these issues. And I think that's really where we need to go back and think, because honestly speaking, when I listen to people talk about mental health today, it feels to me like how people talked about physical health 30 years ago in treatment rather than prevention. And the prevention is not, a treatment. I think the prevention starts from how do you create a place that actually makes it a happy place. I'm going to leave you with this comment. Today, when you look at the elderly generation that's being driven away from their families because they can't afford to live in Orange County, and we put them in homes that are 18 miles away thinking that's good for them, we're destroying their mental health. So there's a lot to be talked about, and that's why we're doing what we're doing on the community side to try to be proactive.
Very good. Well, and I particularly like the concept of well-being when you add it into those great assets of Orange County, our open space, our great weather, the parks you're building, the recreational opportunities for our young people. Gaddi, I know that's a big issue as well for you. So it is all of the above, and part of the reason why we need to continue to promote that this is a hip and cool place to be. It's not your grandparents' Orange County, right? So very good. All right, we have one more segment to move into, and that is community. And Gaddi, you touched on this already in some of your comments previously. You mentioned Orange County is highly diverse, ethnically, linguistically, economically. Is there a common thread for us that brings us all together? What's our common thread?
Well, the common thread, first of all, is that we all call Orange County home. That's the first thread. The second, I think, which is very important in an increasingly diverse county, is that, as Emile has alluded to, in terms of his background, where he's come from, I grew up here in Orange County, so I've been privileged to see this county evolve, grow, expand, diversify. But it's fair to say, I think, that the diversity that we have in this county is a population of people with great aspirations, a sense of purpose, entrepreneurship, small business, medium business, innovators, influencers, people who bring, if you will, their skill, their talent, their ethnicity, their culture to the process of what we call our quality of life here, and that existence that has been referred to on a number of occasions. I think the important thing is for us to continually recognize and acknowledge that in this case, when we're talking about well-being or wellness, a lot of that depends, where you live in Orange County. Because if you live in South Orange County, it's a very different experience than if you live in downtown Santa Ana. But the important aspect of all of this is to recognize that we all call this place home. and that we can all be a part of Orange County's present and its future if we adopt an outlook that is one of inclusiveness and we exclude no one process. And if we do that, I think we will be positioned for much greater success. I go back to the aspect of well-being, and I think about children, for example, who are not in school, who are without their daily lunch program, who are suffering from malnutrition. As a former U.S. ambassador, one of my assignments was to deal with poverty, food insecurity in the world. And when I bring it home to Orange County, it concerns me greatly that we have children who are not in school, therefore not enjoying the lunch programs that typically provide the nutrition they have. The fact that schools are closed, are no longer the place where children can find refuge when they're abused or neglected. Those teachers, those administrators are not on site to call, report those incidents as they're required to do. And as a former police officer, as one of my first job in my career, I can tell you that I've witnessed the consequences of violence on children, and it is something that has been part of my concern and focus my entire career. So I think that we need to recognize that there is power, there is opportunity, and there's great promise when we bring together the collective views and minds of the cultures, ethnicities, and people who make up the population in Orange County.
Very good. Thank you, Gaddi. Kimberly, jump in.
Yeah, I think you did such a beautiful job of describing what drew us all to Orange County and why we stay here. One thing I would add is I think this is an extremely family-centered, family-centric community. And I think it's important to build upon that. It really does tie into overall well-being. But I would add that, and then when I was hearing your comments around what it means to our youth to not be in school and some of the mechanisms that we typically have to pick up children that may be at risk and the food insecurity piece. I think another piece of our community that's going to affect wellness or well-being is the growing trends around maybe lack of proper nutrition or awareness of the importance of nutrition, and the growing trend around children and obesity. So I would just, if you were talking about food insecurity, that's a big piece of it, as well as unhealthy eating habits and what's happening with our youth there. But mostly I wanted to point out how fortunate we are to be in a community that is very family-centered, and I think is a foundation that we can build upon as we're tackling all these different elements of living.
Excellent.
And Lucy, if I could add something to that, because I think we would be remiss. I would certainly feel remiss if I didn't say that the level of philanthropy that we see in Orange County is absolutely astounding. And the generosity of people to provide support, financial and otherwise, to organizations that are delivering the kinds of services and filling the gaps that we're talking about here is something worthy of mentioning, because there are many generous people who, through private dollars, we have been able to build institutions like the Samueli Academy, the Orangewood Home, and a number of other facilities that are providing services, particularly to children, but providing educational attainment that's going to build that future workforce in Orange County.
Very good. Thank you, Gaddi. Emile, one of the things that I'm fascinated by, and I can listen to your stories for hours, in particular, growing up in a civil war. And here in the United States, we've seen not only pandemic, we've seen a very difficult election season. We've seen riots throughout our country, and Orange County more active politically than in its history than ever before, and tensions can sometimes run high. With everything that has happened, what do we need to do to inspire collaboration and unity in our community? And I want to just add, for me, a unifying focus and a shout out how important the arts community is to Orange County, which has been shuttered in this pandemic. But can you give me your thoughts, your ideas on what are ways to inspire collaboration and unity?
Well, I think that, you need leadership that allows people to start following. And I think that today, one of the challenges we have in Orange County is we're made of 34 cities, and every city has its own agenda. And even cities don't agree. I mean, today you look at the compliance of the regulation that were coming out, that are coming out of Sacramento on the lockdown and stay at home, and everybody decides to do whatever they want. And that doesn't help create a community, because you're creating more fragmentation and you're actually pushing more towards polarization, which is the challenge that we have at the national level. And I think we're starting to see it at the micro level in Orange County, because you have today exposed more with the COVID-19, those issues, as Gaddi was saying. I mean, today, if you look at the behavior of places on the coast, whether it's San Clemente, Newport, Huntington Beach, versus, Santa Ana, and those are now showing us the two sides of the coin. So I think that you need leadership, and I think that leadership is going to have to come from the public-private side, because we cannot rely on the public side alone, because unfortunately the public side is split right now in the middle, and everything seems to be politicized. But I think that people like Gaddi, like you and others, should step up and play more of a leadership in bringing the community together. I think that it's extremely important right now to recognize that. This was an election season that for the first time I was really nervous about how much Orange County was pulling from the national backdrop in terms of the agendas that people were running on. That's a big concern. Look, I think that we are changing more than people think we're changing, and faster in Orange County.
Yes.
A third of the people who live here were born in another country. Almost 50% of the household speak a different language than English at home.
Exactly.
And when you really look at it, we are attracting people here because of the quality of life and quality of education. Those are two huge assets that we should capitalize on and make it inclusive and bring people and really celebrate diversity in a way that could set the tone for not only the state, but the rest of the country.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you very much for that. So I want to end with a question here to have you all finish up for us and give us a wrap up as we've talked about innovation, wellness, and community. Finish this sentence. Kimberly, I'll put you on the spot first. The future of Orange County is?
Our children. That's an easy one for me, Lucy. Our children.
It truly is. It truly is. And Gaddi, the future of Orange County is?
It's filled with promise if we choose to shape it and make it our own.
Excellent. And Emile?
Well, I think that the future of Orange County is people dreaming together in 108 languages.
That is amazing. That is amazing. Well, and from my perspective, again, I just think the future is bright because of the fabulous leadership that each of you gives us. And I thank you for that today. I thank you for inspiring the next generation with your amazing insights and life stories. We will continue to work hard to teach people how Orange County is hip and cool and the future that we can all be proud of, that leads the rest of the region and the state and the nation as well. An amazing discussion today. I thank you for joining us, and thank you, all of you, for our audience at home, for joining us. We still have more in store in conversations, but first, let us hear a little bit more about OC Forum's 30th anniversary. Thank you.
In honor of our 30th anniversary celebration of the OC Forum, we are raising $30,000 to establish an endowment fund. Our 30 for 30 fundraising campaign is looking for 30 generous sponsors to donate or pledge $1,000 to this fund. If you wish to contribute, please visit the link in the description below this video. I would also like to thank you for your continued support. These programs would simply not be possible without your contribution. Now, please enjoy the rest of the show.
Congratulations, OC Forum. What a year 2020 has been. We've all had the time to reflect and recalibrate on what is most important in life. When I think of ensuring OC remains strong, I am reminded of the importance of mental health and our overall well-being. Now more than ever, we need to come together and encourage and care for one another. We've seen this community do amazing things this year, such as providing COVID-19 resources for OC's nonprofit organizations. Cigna is also committed to doing our part to ensure we live our best lives. We've developed materials and resources for our employers, members, and the community that help reduce stress and build resistance. Please take advantage of these free materials out on Cigna.com and continue to be well, OC.
Orange County philanthropy is fueled by first-generation wealth builders, entrepreneurs and innovators who often had a humble start. In fact, many were recipients of philanthropy, attending after-school programs, going to college on scholarships, so they're passionate about creating opportunity for others. They bring the same strategy and vision that drove their business success to the way they give, and that has been a game changer in addressing our community's big challenges. What gives me hope for the future is that Orange County reflects the best of the head and the heart. And my greatest joy is that at OCCF, we get to help put all the pieces together.
Pondering on the Orange County Forum 30th Anniversary Program, The Future of Race Relations, addressing injustice and equity in the wake of George Floyd's death. It was impactful, insightful, and an invitation to openness. This openness has allowed our county to reflect, listen, and move in a positive direction toward a deeper understanding. This deeper understanding needed to create a path for Orange County's diversity and inclusiveness, especially in our business, educational, and vast communities. Access to information has been the hallmark of the Orange County Black Chamber, and we understand the power of community connections. To that end, we have initiated with the Orange County Business Council and Cal State University Fullerton a racial equity and inclusive action plan framework. This action plan creates a framework for safe, equitable, and inclusive public and private businesses to implement meaningful practices and encourage positive change. This community connection has also created the Orange County Diverse Business Leaders Coalition. We are committed to help ensure a strong, diverse future for Orange County.
I'm Ron Hasse, publisher of the Orange County Register. It's a privilege to join the OC Forum's 30th anniversary celebration today. As we look back on 2020, we see society at a crossroads, and we all know Orange County is not immune. Globally, we are seeing a crisis in communication, people building silos, surrounding themselves exclusively with like-minded thinkers. We need to place a premium on the value of communication and presenting unbiased truth. It's never been more important to mark each day in our shared Orange County history accurately, objectively, and fully. At the Register, our goal is to provide excellence in local journalism, and that means serving as a trusted watchdog, amplifying diverse voices, and celebrating the many heroes among us. I'd like to extend my thanks and sincere appreciation to our Southern California journalists. I couldn't be prouder of their professionalism, dedication, and service. We believe it is essential that we carefully document our present. Only then can we look to our future, better informed, more engaged, and as one strong community. The Register is a proud founding member of the OC Forum, and we applaud the Forum's efforts to host spirited debate over the past 30 years.
A key element to securing a strong future for Orange County is our ability to mitigate the effects of COVID-19. Until such time as the vaccine is available, we need to focus our efforts on effectively balancing the health and well-being of our communities with the health and well-being of our economy. Our businesses need to reopen safely so people can get back to work and we can get our economy up and running again. In a post-COVID environment, it is going to take a coordinated effort between state and local officials to create a more business-friendly environment in Orange County and California as a whole. We can start by investing in workforce housing, easing regulations, lowering taxes, and reducing the cost of living. Orange County has so much to offer: an amazing coastline, great weather, a highly skilled and educated workforce, and tremendous opportunities for businesses and families to succeed. But businesses and families are leaving Orange County and California at an alarming rate. I am confident that if we can address these issues, Orange County can regain its reputation of being a dynamic economic powerhouse with a quality of life second to none.
I have an optimistic and aspirational view of the future of our world, and in particular, Orange County. One way to assure this bright future is to become a top-tier innovation region. My belief is if we grow innovation jobs, other jobs are created, people have more money to spend, and there's the promise of greater social equity. This will take all of us working together, established companies, the startup ecosystem, our educators, and our wonderful nonprofits. Working together, we will enable more sustainable growth for the county, opportunities for all residents, and this will enable companies like Edwards to serve even more patients around the world.
As I think about Orange County's bright future, I do so with an enormous sense of pride and responsibility. Disneyland Resort is the backbone of our travel and tourism sector and a critical economic engine that drives our Southern California economy. We know that our success is dependent on our ability to deliver outstanding and safe experiences, as we have done when we reopened our parks and resorts around the world. Although our country is experiencing one of the most challenging times in our history, I am confident that as Orange County mounts its comeback as a vibrant community and premier travel destination, everyone, and I truly mean everyone, will step up to do their part to help make this a reality as quickly as possible. I commit to you that the Disneyland Resort will be leading the way. We are working tirelessly to reopen responsibly while supporting the health efforts of our Orange County community. On behalf of all of our cast members, we are ready and we can't wait to welcome back our guests to this vibrant community.
I'm Samuel Johnson, Chief Executive Officer for the Transportation Corridor Agencies. Transportation infrastructure is critical to supporting our way of life here in Orange County and California and the entire nation. One of the things I really appreciate about the tolling industry and our discussions around the future of transportation is our approach to fiscal responsibility. Our boards are now looking at ways where we can either pay down debt sooner or where we can continue to make enhancements to our roadways and look at benefits to overall regional mobility through partnerships with folks like the County of Orange, our member cities, Caltrans, and our friends at OCTA. As we look towards the future, we know that better times are ahead. We have to have the mindset that our regional leaders had some 30 years ago that started the great story we have in Orange County. And I think TCA will be a key part of continuing to deliver the quality of life we have here.
With over 41,000 students, 300,000 plus alumni, and almost 65 years of service as the largest, most equitable university in the region, Cal State Fullerton is not only knit into Orange County's past and present, we are Orange County's future. Rooted in the strength of our broad diversity and rich academic excellence, we are continuously building our legacy by showing the world what it takes to graduate students who are workforce ready, culturally agile, globally aware, and civically engaged. What does the future of Orange County take? With more than 300,000 alumni and 80% of whom live within 50 miles of our campus, the future of Orange County takes a Titan, and we will be the Titans it takes.
Hi, Angels Baseball is proud to be part of Orange County. For a strong future, we need to put focus on the citizens of Orange County, especially our children. We need to continue to build a community that everyone can be proud of and involved in. Through nonprofit foundations like Angel Baseball Foundation, we will continue to invest in our youth and educational programs as they will be pivotal in the future of the county. In addition to youth, we will continue to invest in our team on and off the field. Sports brings people together from all backgrounds, and this unity can be part of giving Orange County the strength it needs moving forward.
Even before the pandemic, our world was witnessing seismic economic and technological shifts. The future will require even more resilience from students and educators. It will also demand new and innovative approaches to ensure college and career readiness and success for all students. We will continue to emphasize the STEAM subjects of science, technology, engineering, arts, and math, and we know these are critical to keeping Orange County and the United States at the forefront of such fields as medicine, communications, transportation, and defense. At the same time, we must never lose sight of the value of the humanities, including language arts and meaningful civics education courses that empower students with the rights and responsibilities of being an American.
Congratulations, OC Forum, on your 30th anniversary. We are so proud to be part of this community with you, and thank you for all you do. At Orange County United Way, we have a vision of a future that every person has a quality education, is financially stable, is healthy and thriving, and has a place to call home.